Welcome to Speak as One. I'm Julie Corrieth. Today we have with us Trent Shelton. Hi, Trent.
Hey, Julie. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Jason Fox is who introduced us.
Yep.
And when he told me about you, I wasn't really involved in Instagram that much. And when he told me to look up your page and everything, I looked it up and I was just immediately inspired and taken back by the work that you do. So I just want to say thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Yeah. And I'd love to hear, I've read your first book and I'm starting your second one. So I've learned a little bit, about you growing up here in Fort Worth, which is where we are today. Yeah. Yeah. You want to tell our viewers a little bit about that,
Yeah, for sure. I lived in New Orleans till I was in 7th grade.
Okay.
My dad, his job brought us here. He works for UPS forever. Like he's like year 55 there, which is awesome. And yeah, I've been in Fort Worth since 7th grade. An athlete my whole entire life, probably since I stepped out my mom's womb. 2 older brothers, and it's been my identity. It was my identity, for my whole life. Played at North Crowley, got a chance to go to Baylor on a scholarship, and then from there, got to taste a little bit of NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't it interesting that you hear of even kids can start forming these identities at such a young age, and that's where it all stems from,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's put on us, and it's not just sports, it's anything. I mean, society has its projections that they put on you, and sometimes, it's not on purpose, but our parents can put projections on us, our friends, and, with me being an athlete, that was what my whole identity was wrapped around. So there's so many athletes in the world that you see and maybe even don't see that struggle with mental health, that struggle with a lot of things, because it's like, who am I without this? And then when you lose it, it's definitely like, okay, how do I operate in this world that's been foreign to me? I don't even know how to get a job. I've never worked a job. I don't even have career skills. It's just football. And that was very rough for me. And, I hit a really, really low point in my life because I'm like, who is Trent Shelton outside of being an athlete?
Mm-hmm. When you were younger and growing up, did you ever have those struggles, when you were playing football and young and here and through elementary school and high school, or did you always feel like I'm playing football and this is amazing and life felt easy?
I really didn't have the struggles until I probably made it to NFL. That's when the struggles really hit, because that was my first taste of probably adversity, maybe a little bit in college. But for me, there was nothing outside of that, of life. It was just, this is what I'm born to do. This is my purpose. This is what I was born for. And so, yes, I had my struggle in dealing with pressure or dealing with tying my self-worth to stats, to wins and losses, and have that type of pressure. But, outside of sports, there wasn't really a world that existed to me.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting that you brought up projection. And, I think when we were growing up, I don't even know if anybody really talked about projection or knew what it was.
Yeah.
I learned about it after my divorce. I actually went to a coach that taught about projection.
Yeah.
And that way I wasn't projecting my own thoughts around what was going on in the marriage and after onto my ex. And it changed my life. And it's really hard to separate yourself from that. Sometimes I think people don't even know we're doing it because it's just so ingrained.
Yeah.
But learning about it has been something that's changed my life, and I try not to do, of course, not perfect, but it just is with kids. I sometimes don't even realize I'm doing it with my own kids.
Yeah. You're a human being.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
It is.
We're going to project on other people. It's just who we are. But I think it's the awareness and knowing that we're doing that, or having the, even the compassion to know when somebody's telling us, hey, you're projecting. They might not say those words, but it's like, hey, you're putting something on me that's not me, or your insecurities are now being placed upon my life. And so I think when we can come to a place of having compassion and say, oh, let me take a step back and realize, man, maybe my past is really coming out and making, putting on my kid or my relationship or my friendship. And so that's been a big thing for me too, is doing the healing to understanding where that's coming from. But you're a human. You're not going to be perfect. And it's just about having awareness to be able to change that.
Yeah, I can't wait to get in the healing part of that. But first, let's go back to, college. Everything seemed to be going fine. You're at Baylor,
Yeah.
And then after you graduate from Baylor, then what?
Yeah, well, I thought I was going to get drafted. That didn't happen. I mean, that's every kid's dream. I was supposed to get drafted. I was projected, it's the word again, to get drafted the 4th or 5th round. And there's no, like, worse feeling than sitting in your house and everybody's there, like, waiting on your name to get called, and it doesn't get called. So my mom was like, "Are you okay, baby?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." Even though I was far from it. Like, I'm not nervous at all, but I was super nervous. So second day came around of the draft. I was like, okay, I know my name's gonna get called today. 7th round went around, my name didn't get called. Right when the draft ended, they considered me a high priority free agent. What that means is that you were on a lot of draft boards. People really wanted you. They just didn't draft you. And so now they want you on the team as a free agent. And so my phone was ringing off the hook. I ended up signing with the Indianapolis Colts. Year after they won the Super Bowl, Coach Dungy was the main reason why, because just the man who he was and who he is. And I went there with some guidance from my uncle he just retired from coaching in the NFL. He was like, go here, they give you a fair shake. And, I went to Indianapolis. And that's when my life changed forever, for sure.
Wow. Because for somebody like me, just the fact that you're in the draft, the fact that you're playing college football, that is, it's so hard to be on starting playing college,
For sure.
And then I understand, like, being drafted or not being drafted is devastating.
Yeah.
But then to be able to go and start this journey, for somebody like me, it just seems like it's so out of this world.
Yeah, I didn't really realize how special it was until, like, I stepped out of it. It was normal. Like, I understood, like, yes, the percentage, because, teachers remind you all the time, like, less than 1% of people make it. And I understood, or just even people in general, when you have a big dream like that. But I was so confident that this was for me that I couldn't see my life without it. When I got to Indy, like I said, that's when, when life really changed for me, not in the best way. It's like my dream came true just to birth my greatest nightmare.
So what happened in Indy?
I got cut. A lot, like fired for y'all. Yeah, fired pretty much. And I was doing great. And I don't blame the Indianapolis Colts or anybody, but I know it's a higher purpose now for my life, and now I'm grateful for that. But at that time, I was very upset and angry because the preseason, I'm actually the #1 receiver out of all the rookie class in NFL with yards and everything. And I just know that I'm going to make the team. I ended up not making the team, but the reason being they wanted to mold me so they would keep me on the practice squad for a little while and move me up eventually. So I'm like, cool, I'm here. I'm in Indy. Okay, I'm going to move up. I went and got an apartment. I got a truck. That was always my thing. I'm going to buy me a truck and all this stuff. And literally a week me being there, I get a call on Tuesday. It's called Terrible Tuesday. That's when we call the Grim Reaper comes around.
Are you serious?
Yes. Tuesdays a day.
Do you still hate Tuesdays?
Not as much no more, but I probably still have some anxiety around it because, like, Tuesdays a day. But even in my position, it was pretty much every day. Every day there was a chance for me to get cut. I got cut times where I'm walking off the practice field. It's like, hey, come see me. And I didn't know what that come to see me was before, but after you get cut about 9 times, the come see me isn't no promotion, right? It's like, hey, we're getting rid of you. And I remember being in the bank, and the first time I got cut, it was a 317 number, and I answer it. And they're like, hey, come up to the facility. I thought it was a joke. Like, I was like, oh, okay. And I just hung up. And they called me back. It's like, hey, no, come up to the facility now and bring your playbook. I was like, all right, cool. Maybe they want to add some plays to my playbook. I get there and say, hey, Trent, we love you. You're a great player. You're awesome. But we got to cut you. So how does that make sense? And so I'm driving from, I know that the distance because I drove it enough times, 14 hours from Indy to Texas, just getting released. And when I get home for a week, I get a call back to come back. So that's how my career went. Like, not knowing where I'm going to be at every week.
Yeah, it doesn't create safety.
Not at all. Not at all. I didn't have safety for 3 years. I couldn't bring a lot of my stuff. I was scared to bring my car up there. Like, it was just so much that I just literally lived out of a suitcase. And I kept that suitcase packed. I never unpacked it. 3 years.
You can already start to sense how that's just each time creating a little bit more fear, a little bit more, and it just grows and grows and grows. And then what do you do with that, And how can athletes or people create safety when their environment becomes so inconsistent like that? Is there something you can look back on now where you can think, okay, if I was in that position and I know I might be getting cut and then going back and going, is there things that you would do differently now?
Yeah, I would shift my perspective. I would shift my perspective from my prison to my power. I talk about this a lot. You know, a prison perspective is basically saying like, this is working against me. Nothing's ever going to go right. A power perspective is saying, how is this working for me, even in things that seem like they're working against me? You know, and that's what I would have learned, that like, okay, I'm getting cut, I'm getting released, but what is this not even trying to teach me? Because it's a mindset shift right there. Because maybe you say, what is this trying to teach me? You go back to an old way of thinking that's negative. So I say, what is this going to teach me? And then by that small shift, I put the power in my control and be like, okay, if I get cut, maybe it's gonna teach me that I'm gonna be more resilient. It's leading me to where my life is supposed to be. And as 2008, 2009, going from the Indy to Seattle to Washington, when I got to Washington, I started getting cut. I wasn't even sad anymore because I knew, I just started rehab time. I knew that there was something bigger for my life. I just didn't know what it was. And so I just knew that this is just a part of the journey. It's not my purpose. It's a part of the journey to lead me to what I'm really supposed to do. Because even if you play, I mean, unless you're Tom Brady, I know, but even if you play 10 years, 12 years, majority of your life is gonna be outside of sports if you live a long life. And so a lot of guys don't realize that.
Right. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I love rehab time. So let's get there. I'm like trying not to rush it. Yeah, let's talk about rehab time. But yeah, so then what led you then to go from this prison mindset to a power mindset? Yeah. What were the steps around
For
that?
sure.
Can you take us kind of like back to the dark closet?
Absolutely. I remember like it was yesterday. The final straw for me, and I have to tell this story because this is when I was like forget it. Like, this is not what my life is made to be. I was in Dallas. I just got cut from Seattle. I was in Dallas, and Dallas Fort Worth, you know, for y'all don't know, it's some distance, like 45 minutes away, depending on what part of the city you're in. But from my house to where I was at was 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. I get a call on Monday, and it was the Seahawks. And they're like, hey, like, we want you back. Like, you know, like, we need you back tonight. We have a plane for you. And so I'm like, hey, I'm eating right now. Like, I know tomorrow's our off day. It's Tuesday. So like, can I come tomorrow? It's like, hey, no, we need you tonight. So I said, okay. So I rush home, get on Facebook at the time, tell everybody I'm going back to Seattle. This is crazy. I pack my bags. I get home, right? I pack my bags, rush home, get to the airport, drive to Dallas Fort Worth Airport. And I'm literally like in the line where I'm about to give my ID to the guy. And I get a call, and it's a 206 number, and it's Seattle. I'm like, okay, maybe like what it say, hey, have you left yet? I was like, no, I haven't left. I'm about to get on the plane. Don't do it. We changed our mind. Literally, like, that was we changed our mind.
This is like an abusive relationship.
Absolutely. And I'm just like, at that point, I was like, all right, cool. Hung up, and I was like, all right. Like, that was the final straw for me. And I was like, I'm not going to keep putting my worth in this. Now, if things happen, they happen. And I remember it was 2009. So that was 2008, the end of it. 2009, February is when rehab time started. I was in my parents' house, in my room, and I was looking at just my trophies. I was looking at just all the newspaper clips. And I told myself that there has to be more to my life than this. And just with my faith, like, just God showed me that, you know, in that moment, there is more to your life. And I didn't understand what that was. I wasn't a speaker. I'm an introvert by nature. I majored in speech communications, but I did that because it was the easy route so I can graduate, you know? And I told myself these words is rehab time. I didn't know where it came from. It just came to my heart. And that meant me connecting mind, body, and soul. I wasn't a reader, for sure wasn't a writer. Spirituality was, it was on the back burner of my life. Mm-hmm. And then from my physical side, I wasn't treating my body the best way I should. So it meant going to 24-hour fitness late night. That was rehab time. And that's where it started. Wow. So I would tell people out there, like, control what you can control, right? Mind, body, and soul, because what you feed your mind will grow in your soul. And so you have to be able to protect this when we talk about mental health. And that's the greatest war everyone will face, is the war here, not external. It's an internal thing. So self-talk, self-dialogue is very important. So my I ams became from I am a failure to no, I'm a winner. You know, I'm sad, I'm depressed, no, to I'm conquering through this. I'm a warrior, I am peace. And that changed my life.
So powerful. Yeah. And to have that, you know, you said that religion was like on the back burner.
Yeah.
But to still be able to hear that.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
It's unconditional.
And I think
God's love is unconditional.
It's so true. And if you hear that, listen.
Yeah.
Listen to it. I had a similar experience whenever I stopped drinking. I heard God say to me, when you stop drinking, your life will begin. It took me a little while to listen. It took me almost a year, but then I just kept hearing it. And I knew, I was like, this is powerful. And it was almost in a way I'd never heard it. Is that how it was for you? Like
Absolutely.
You'd never heard God speak to you like that?
Absolutely. It's just, you know, I call it listen to your soul. Because sometimes, you know, we're looking for an audible voice. I'm not saying God can't be audible. I think he uses people. Mm-hmm. He uses things. But it was my soul that was like a strong emotion to say, like, this is it. And again, there was no physical evidence outside of me that showed me this was it. It was me literally trusting. And that's faith, right? Yeah. Faith is not seeing it and believing it. It's saying, okay, I'm trusting you even when it doesn't make sense. I'm trusting you even when I don't understand. And it took a lot of trust in that journey to be able to walk away from something that I love so much to walk into the unknown. Mm-hmm.
So then, you started RehabTime.
Yeah.
And you started building yourself up mentally, physically, and spiritually, just in all these different areas. And then do you get called by another team?
Yeah. Washington hit me back up.
Okay.
And, you know, I ran my fastest 40 time ever. I ran like a 4.3, which I never ran that. Got another opportunity. And it was the same thing, you know, here and there. But I was okay. You know, then I went to the arena football route because I was still trying to hang on to that identity. But even in that, I knew it wasn't going to work out. I knew this wasn't it. But those paths were necessary for me to go on, not because of football, but because of RehabTime and my purpose. Because in those paths, I got to connect with a guy named Jonathan Evans. And Jonathan, his dad, Dr. Tony Evans, is an amazing man, amazing pastor. And so is Jonathan. He's the chaplain for the Cowboys now. But we played at Baylor together. We played at Washington together. And while we were at Washington, we spent time as roommates. And his whole family is just like powerful, you know, speakers and everything. And he told me, he said, Trent, you know what? You don't talk much, but when you talk, there's something there. He said,
you didn't talk much back then?
Nah, I still don't really.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm very, I don't like to say introverted as I'm shy. I'm just a listener. Like I'll probably be the quietest person in the room, not because I'm shy, just because I like to listen. You know, I'll speak. My grandmother always told me that. She said, when you speak, make sure your words count. Mm-hmm. And so I just try to make my words count when I speak.
They do.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so he spoke that into me, and he invited me to come speak at the church, at his church. It was a youth night. And like at that time, my life wasn't churchish. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know if I should go do that. But he told me, hey, come do it. And I spoke in front of kids, and to kind of make the long story short, it was in that moment that I knew that this was my mission. And I called the coach that I was supposed to go to New Orleans to the next day. I said, I'm not coming. That's when I quit football cold turkey. And that's when I walked into what people know today as RehabTime, like fully.
That's amazing. Yeah, I remember listening to the book about how completely anxious you were about going and speaking on stage.
Yeah,
you just kept fighting it. You were like, no, you don't mean me. Like, no.
For sure.
And then eventually, you know, you got on stage and like with no scripts or anything.
I had a script that I prepared the night before, but when I got on stage, I forgot it. So I didn't have like physical notes, but I had memorized like a 5-minute speech. So I'm like, okay, cool. I got it. I get the microphone. I'm just like, dang. And to this day, and that's why I feel like I operate so well just from the heart. And I'm not saying this is for everybody, but like notes and everything, like, I mean, you can ask my team, like it almost makes me more uncomfortable. You know, I just like to follow my heart. Mm-hmm. And it was in that moment where I say, you know, just God, I trust you. God, lead me. And literally those kids, I remember like it was yesterday, those kids were like this the whole time. And that's tough because I know how it is being a 13, 14-year-old when somebody's speaking like, what do you want to hear this for? And that was the moment I realized like I have so much clarity in such a confused moment for me. So much like peace in a moment where like I have so much anxiety. And I was like, how does this work? And I said, this has to be something that's meant for my life because I can't make sense of it. And I just walked into it fully after that day.
Wow, that's beautiful. I can relate so much because when I started this, I'd never been in front of a camera. I am much more, I'm like you, I'm a listener. I think there are times in my life where I have felt extremely shy, and then times where not necessarily like I'm feeling shy, but I like to listen. I'm like
For
you,
sure.
you know? And so kind of, again, you know, you hear this calling and have people like mentors are saying, oh, I suggest you do this and not just a podcast, make it video. And I'm like, no way. Yeah. I am not stepping foot in front of a camera. But then whenever I did my first story, it just felt so right.
That's right.
And all that anxiety. You know, so I completely can just relate to what you're saying. And then you start to understand that you're on the right path. Yeah. And then you start to trust the universe and God, or, you know, whatever it is you believe in a little more, because then these doors start to open. And then you kind of realize the ones that close are okay.
That's right.
You know, like, oh, we didn't need to go down that path. You're still going down this path. Is that how you felt?
Yeah, closed doors are a blessing. 1,000%. Like some doors have to close so you can walk into the door that's meant for your life. And just to be real with you, there's some doors that don't even exist yet that are like waiting for you to walk into. And that's what faith is, right? Like there's doors and relationships. I'm sure you can relate to this, like how you, even just how I got here, right? In this connection, like you couldn't have planned that, or we couldn't have planned that. But it was obedience. It was you doing what you're doing, stepping into your calling, and you building relationships that have other relationships. And so I tell people all the time, it's like, you just have to be able to thank God for the doors that are closed, because there's certain doors that are meant for your life that will be opened at the right time. And that's the thing, like the right time isn't your time all the time.
No, it's not. And we want it to be.
We absolutely do.
Because we want to have control.
For sure. Best thing you can do is let go of control too. Like I think as far as even with mental health and a part of anxiety, a lot of times, you know, I know we have clinical anxiety, different anxieties, but a lot of times anxiety comes from trying to control and not having control. And you want to have that. So one of the things that I always tell myself is like, let go, release, like just become and be and live in this space and allow even thoughts to flow through, allow things to happen, and just trust that it's all working out for your good.
Yeah, I love that. So then, yeah, you speak to this group of kids and you're starting to understand this is my calling.
Yeah.
And where did you start taking it from there?
The internet. I mean, I picked up my cell phone. And I didn't have nice lighting and cameras that we have now, that I even have now. I didn't have that. All I had was a cell phone. And within 6 months of making that decision, like that's when my life changed. I literally picked up my cell phone. I recorded some videos on a red background wall in my office. And it even started, in my office. And those videos went viral, you know, and it's just crazy how it worked. And even with me doing spoken word, I don't consider myself a spoken word artist, but my spoken words friends and Your Life Isn't Over, those are the videos that blew up. And it's just because I feel like I fully submitted into the calling that was on my life since I was a little kid. Because that's the thing too. I would travel with my mother to all these conferences because I'm the baby boy, you know, other kids ain't going. And literally there would be people that would speak into my life and say, you're going to be a speaker one day. You're going to be a person that reaches a lot of people. And I didn't want to hear that. Like even at 5, I said, I'm going to be a football player one day. What are you talking about? I'm not going to be that. And even in journeys like college and teenage years, and I remember my arena football career going to a church where the pastor called me down and said, you are going to reach a lot of people. And I still didn't want to receive that or hear that because I was so locked in on what I wanted to do. I was closed off to anything else. And so I realized like this calling has been on my life for a long time. It's just I was sending it to the voicemail because I'm like, nah, I don't want to talk. I don't want that. That isn't sexy. That isn't profitable. That isn't, you know, popular. I don't want to do those things. I don't want to be a speaker. And it took me really letting go of what I wanted to do and grab a hold of what I was called to do. And that's tough, but we all need to do that.
Yeah, but it is, and now you're like, it is popular.
Yeah, right now, yeah, for sure. Like, it's like a thing now, right? It is, yeah.
But no, but back then it wasn't, not at all. And I could see where it's just like, wait, no, this is where kind of all the fame and everything is. And when you're young, I'm sure most young people think of that idea and that's what they want. It's natural.
Right.
You know, I mean, remember when I was young and I was like seeing, oh my gosh, I'd say, oh my gosh, I want to be like that person or this person. Absolutely. And that's what you gravitate towards. And it's so natural. But then to really, as you get older and your life evolves, I went to go see Bono and Brene Brown the other night. And he was talking about this Pastor Richard Rohr. Are you familiar with his work?
I've heard the name, yes.
Well, they were talking about how the first part of your life and the second part of your life, your second part of your life is really more about your soul work. And this first part of your life is really just more almost like about you and just centered around you and your needs. And it's because you're children, that's the way you're raised. But then your soul starts to take place. And how that second part of your life is really your soul work. And then we all have to go through that when we're younger in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I agree with it.
Yeah, it was really neat that they were talking about that. But yeah. So when you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you're growing, do you have any times when you're just kind of going back and having regrets? And did you learn how to work through those, or did you really feel like it was this instant shift and you're really able to move past all that?
Yeah, it was an instant shift. Like, of course, I still have my moments, even now. Like, I'm like, I can go out there and do that. You know, I have my moments just as being a competitor where I always think about what if, but I stopped my brain from thinking about what if, because what if is just full of regrets that don't help your soul at all. And I just really embrace what is. But yes, there were times where I felt like that, but the main thing was I cut off that bridge. You know, I'm a big believer in looking at everything in your life as bridges. Like, where is it leading you to? Like, it's either leading you to your past that you're trying to get past, that you're trying to get over, or it's leading you to a better life. And so I knew that bridge, even though that bridge was beautiful in my life, that I wanted in my life, I had to burn that bridge because I had to make it where I'm not going back. Like, you know, people talk about burn the boats, right? If you're on an island, you burn the boat. It's like, I can't go back. Now I have to just build this island. And so I wanted to cut off any possibilities of me going back to something that I know wasn't right for my life. And it was tough, but it forced me to be able to really focus on, I believe, my calling in life.
You know, and I remember hearing about a couple of instances that happened in your life of people that were very close to you. One, your best friend, and then two, your mother. Yeah. Would you mind talking about those? Yeah,
for sure. I want to say 2010 or 11, my best friend committed suicide, and that was my teammate, my roommate, and he was, well, first of all, it broke my heart. You know, I was out in Dallas somewhere, man. It was 4th of July weekend, living it up, and I got that call, and I remember like it was yesterday. I didn't want to believe it because somebody at my school that was close to was working the coroner's office, and she told me, you know, he's here. And I didn't know what she was talking about. Like, what are you talking about? And she told me where she worked at, and I was like, what? And me and my other best friend, we were just like 4 of us, but we were really close, and I was actually with him. And we just sat there and we broke down. And it made me realize like how real mental health is. And, you know, you never know the silent battles that people are dealing with. We all have them. And, you know, I first went to regret, like, dang, I wasn't the friend I should have been. I wasn't this, I wasn't that. And I realized even then, like, that doesn't serve anything. So I went to his funeral and I promised him. This is when I really took RehabTime serious. Like when people ask, like, Trent, why are you so passionate about what you do? Like, why are you so committed over the last 13 years? I've had hard times. I had ups and downs. I have times where I wanted to quit. But it was my commitment, my deep-rooted reason to him that I made at his funeral service that I would live the rest of my life literally helping people know their self-worth, helping people know that just because you lose something, you don't have to lose yourself. Just because something is over doesn't mean your life is over. And that was my, I only like to use the word promise because promise is with words. I feel like commitment is a deep version of promise. You know, commitment doesn't work off of emotions. It doesn't work off of any of that. Like, that's like, I'm sticking to this. And that was the moment where RehabTime became really serious for me. It became a mission, not just a calling for me, but actually a mission that I knew that there's people in the world that are dealing with this. And I want to make sure they have a voice or they have an ear. You know what I mean? And with my mom recently, you know, that's tough. You know, my mom is the one that gave me the permission to like walk into my calling. Like she said, baby, like that's God speaking to you. Even if you don't know how, like she said, I don't even know how, but just trust. And so losing her, I like to use the word losing, gaining her as an angel, because that's what happened. And, you know, she won her battle with cancer, as I like to say, because she gave cancer a fight. It was hard because, I mean, that's my mom, that's my everything. And for me, though, you know, just talking about grief, because I know a lot of people deal with it, I always say, you know, turn your grief into greatness. And people are like, how does that even work? And for me, it was me understanding this, like, number one, like my mother fought a battle and, you know, her race was over. You know what I mean? She ran her race, and we all gonna have a day where our race is over. And I know she lived a life that she wanted to live. And I had to ask myself that question. And I would ask people watching this, like, am I living the life that I want to live? If my life was to end today, would I have regret or will I rejoice? And so in that moment where grief was overtaking me and I was kind of losing myself, I told myself this, and my mother can't rest in peace until I'm living in peace. And I said, she wouldn't want to be the reason why I quit and gave up. She would want to be the reason why I went harder and went further. And so that's why, like, recently in this last year, my mission is like elevated, because there's some hearts in the world that I haven't reached yet through my message, and I'm for sure going to reach those hearts.